It all started one crisp Sunday morning at my little off-grid retreat by Silverwood Lake. I was nursing a strong cup of joe, scribbling away at a puzzle, when the doorknob started jiggling like some ghost was trying to get in. But nope, it was just Linda from the neighborhood association, decked out in her signature floral jacket and those massive shades, waving what she called her universal access key, like it was the golden ticket to my world. She gave it one last frustrated twist, stepped back with this dramatic sigh, and pulled out her phone to dial the cops, mouthing something about unauthorized resistance. And right there, peeking through the blinds in my plaid PJs, I felt that familiar mix of annoyance and disbelief bubbling up, because this wasn't her first rodeo, and I knew it was going to spiral into something wild. Deep down, though, it hit me harder than usual. I'd bought this secluded spot 3 years back to escape the noise of suburbia, to have my own slice of quiet where the only rules were mine. But Linda, she saw my independence as some kind of personal affront, like my cabin existing outside her little empire, threatened the whole fabric of community harmony she'd built her life around, all rooted in her need to control everything from mailboxes to the way folks trimmed their hedges. From the get-go, Linda had it out for me. Ever since I rolled in with my solar panels and rain collectors, she'd been slapping me with these absurd citations, claiming my bird feeders were disrupting avian traffic patterns, or that my gravel path was a visual hazard to the cul-de-sac aesthetic. But really, I think it boiled down to jealousy. She ran the Willow Ridge Association like her personal fiefdom, collecting dues, enforcing paint colors, and micromanaging everyone's lives to fill that void of never quite fitting in elsewhere, and my place being just beyond their boundary line. That grated on her soul, made her feel like her power had limits she couldn't accept. So there she was, phone pressed to her ear, spinning tales to dispatch about a potential intruder refusing inspection. Her voice all polished outrage, while I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, and just stared her down. "Linda, you really think that key's gonna work here? This ain't your turf." She shot back with that smug grin. "Association guidelines give me oversight. You'll see when the law arrives." And oh man, the irony hit like a truck, because little did she know. The deputy pulling up in that cruiser was my boy Alex, all grown up and badge-wearing, stepping out with this calm authority that made her freeze mid-sentence, her face twisting from triumph to pure shock as she stammered, "Wait, this is nepotism. You can't be here." But Alex, cool as ever, just nodded. "Ma'am, you called emergency services. What's the issue?" And watching her fumble, holding up that phony key like evidence, claiming the whole ridge was under review for inclusion, it was almost comical, except for the fire it lit in me. This realization that her delusions weren't just quirky, they were invasive, chipping away at the peace I'd fought so hard to build after years of city stress and a messy divorce that left me craving solitude. As the days dragged on, Linda ramped it up like a one-woman crusade. She'd hold these impromptu crisis sessions down by the community gazebo, megaphone in hand, rallying a handful of bleary-eyed neighbors with wild accusations, pointing up at my cabin and declaring that rogue setup's a menace to our unity, hoarding lake views and breeding unruly wildlife. We vote to integrate it now. And I'd watch from afar, chuckling into my mug, but inside, it stung, because some folks actually bought into her fear-mongering, whispering about how my prepper vibes might lower property values, all stemming from her twisted view that community meant total submission to her rules, born out of her own lonely backstory, I later heard, where she'd lost a family home to foreclosure and vowed never to let chaos win again. She started planting these garish yellow stakes along my driveway at midnight, caught on my trail cam in her reflective vest, muttering legalese to herself like some midnight lawyer, then nailing homemade decrees to my trees about provisional zoning absorption, complete with invented lot numbers and glitter borders. Pure fantasy, but with a bite, because each one felt like a jab at my autonomy, forcing me to trek to the county clerk's office, where old Mrs. Harper, with her knowing smirk, pulled my deed and confirmed, "Honey, your land's as free as the day you bought it. Here's the proof, laminated for emphasis." I confronted her one afternoon as she handed out her crayon-scribbled expansion maps to the block, striding up and saying, "Linda, this is trespassing and forgery wrapped in one. My boundary's clear as day." And she whipped around, eyes blazing. "It's evolving policy. The people demand oversight." But her sidekick, old Tom from maintenance, mumbled under his breath, "Actually, I kinda like his wildflowers. They bring the bees," earning him a glare that could curdle milk. And in that moment I saw the cracks in her armor, the desperation fueling her overreach. But it only made her dig in deeper, issuing fines for excessive tranquility or shadow imbalances from my oaks, each one landing in my growing file like ammunition for the storm I knew was coming. Things hit a boiling point when I woke to the whine of a saw, rushing out, heart pounding, to find Linda directing a couple of hired hands in vests, hacking at my ancient fence line, claiming it blocked future utility paths. And I yelled over the noise, "Stop right there! This is my property and you're destroying history!" They backed off quick, apologies tumbling out. But Linda spun on me, red-faced and spitting, "You're sabotaging progress. Fines incoming." And that was it. The line crossed from annoyance to outright violation, her motives crystal clear now. Not just control, but erasure of anything that challenged her vision of a cookie-cutter paradise, maybe tied to her own regrets over a rebellious kid who'd cut ties years ago, leaving her to pour that unmet need into bossing strangers. I didn't snap back right away. Instead, I documented every flag, every fake notice, every rant, building my case with quiet fury, looping in my lawyer buddy who grinned over the phone. "This lady's handing us a slam dunk. Keep the cams rolling." Then came her midnight drill attempt on my shutters, floodlights snapping on to reveal her scrambling like a caught thief, drill clattering as she yelped, "Just an inspection." And me, phone recording, replying deadpan, "At 2 a.m. with power tools? That's breaking and entering, Linda," sending her crashing into the bushes, threats fading into the night. But inside, I felt this shift, from victim to empowered, realizing her chaos was forging my resolve, turning solitude into strength. The turnaround came swift and sweet. After submitting that footage, the sheriff's office, Alex stepping aside for fairness, issued her a trespass warning, but she doubled down, relocating my mailbox in some petty beautification stunt, note attached like a taunt, which only fueled the neighborhood whisper network finally turning against her, memes popping up about clipboard tyrants, and folks heckling her rallies where she'd scream into a mic, "That cabin's the root of our discord. No rules mean danger." Until the association board, egged on by a brave soul named Sarah who'd endured her own shed audits, called a vote, ousting Linda unanimously amid her protests of procedural betrayal, her cousin even flipping sides with a relieved sigh. Court followed, where she strutted in self-representing binder of emotional offenses in tow, photos of my porch labeled energy disruptors, and the judge, stone-faced, cut through her ramble, "This isn't harmony, Miss Hayes. It's harassment and fraud," slapping on charges, a restraining order, and this palpable wave of justice washing over the room as neighbors stifled laughs, me sitting back feeling that deep exhale of vindication, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long, her downfall not just legal but communal, exposing how one person's unchecked ego could poison a whole group, but also how standing firm could heal it. In the aftermath, peace settled like fresh snow. No more stakes or shouts, just waves from walkers and a gift basket from the new prez, Leonard, with his note saying, "We should have acted sooner. Thanks for the wake-up." And I savored it, planting my garden, swinging on the porch at dusk, reflecting on how this mess had deepened my roots here, taught me that true community thrives without overlords. But then came her final petty jab, a mailed box labeled, "To the deputy's old man," packed with a glitter bomb and a snarky note about taking the high road, which made me chuckle more than fume, a harmless echo of her unyielding spirit. Yet, word trickled in from the clerk's office. Linda was filing to start a fresh association down in Maple Grove, paperwork sloppy but intent clear, chasing that control anew on unsuspecting turf. And it left me pondering, as I sipped tea under the stars, if she'd ever learn, or if folks like her just relocate their storms, leaving us to wonder. Was I the villain in her tale, the rebel thwarting progress, or was justice truly served? What do you think? Have you dealt with a neighborhood bully like this, where lines blur between right and wrong, power and paranoia? Drop your stories in the comments. Share if community means freedom or fences to you. Let's chat about it, because these tales, they're everywhere, and hearing yours might just spark the next big discussion.